Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to multiply decimals together out by hand, and that's what we're going to work on. So I have two examples of multiplication problems so we can kind of do it once and then get another example just to solidify it. The first one over here on the left, we're going to do 3.5 times 4, or 3 tenths, times 4 and 25 hundredths. Okay. Now, in multiplication, it doesn't necessarily matter which one's on top, but I like to put the longer number on top. So I'm going to put my 4 and 25 hundredths on the top. Underneath that, I'm going to put my 3 and 5 tenths. Now, notice when I write this down, I do not have to line up my decimal points. When we add and subtract decimals, we need to line up the decimal points, but it's not the same with multiplication, and I'll show you why that matters in a second. Before I get started, I need to take note of one more thing. I want to count how many digits are behind each decimal point. So if I look at my top number, I have 2 and 5 behind the decimal point, and on my 3 and 5 tenths, I have just a 5 behind the decimal point. What I'm going to do is off to the side, I'm going to write a number 2 out here because I had 2 digits. And then on my 3 and 5 tenths, I'm going to write a 1 because I had 1 digit. So now I have my numbers of decimal places. I'm ready to start multiplying. So now we multiply just like we normally would. 5 times 5 is 25, and I carry my 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, carry my 1. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Now I'm ready for my second digit. I cross out my 5 here, and I drop my 0. Don't forget that 0. So now we start our next set. 3 times 5 is 15, carry my 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And 3 times 4, and I don't need that one, that's from the last time. 3 times 4 is 12. Now I'm ready to add my numbers. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. 2 plus 2 is 4. And 1 gives me 14, or 1 there. So now I'm looking at my number and I say this is great, but I need to figure out where does my decimal point go? This is where I look to these numbers right here. I'm going to add these two numbers together. 2 plus 1 is 3. So this tells me that I need 3 digits behind the decimal point. So I'm just going to count those places back. 1, 2, 3. And now I know that my decimal point is going to go right in front of my 8, because that gives me 3 digits behind the decimal. So my answer is 14 and 875 thousandths. Okay, so we'll do one more example real quick. Again, I'm going to put my bigger number on top, so I'm going to put 6 and 22 hundredths on top, and I'm going to put 1/10 on the bottom. Remember, my first step is to count my decimal places. So I'm going to say I have 2 digits behind up top. And on the bottom, I have 1 digit behind. Now that I have my numbers behind the decimal points, I'm ready to multiply. So let's go ahead. We'll do 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And 1 times 6 is 6. Man, that was easy. And I could cross this out and do the 0, but really that's just going to get me a line of zeros. So I don't really need to do that row. I can stop right here. I want to look again and see where does my decimal point go. So I count and I add these up. And I say 2 plus 1 is 3. So that tells me I need 3 numbers behind my decimal point. So I count 1, 2, 3. All 3 of these numbers need to be behind my decimal point. So that means my decimal goes in front of the 6. I'll add a 0 since there's nothing out in front. And that means my answer is 0 and 622 thousandths. And that is how we multiply with decimals.